that after a Xurkitree sets up the Tail Glow, the threat of a Marowak switch-in is something you have to be very, very careful of if you're looking to capitalize on the big boost to your special attack and throw out Thunderbolts.
Here we go. The first turn of the first game of our final match here in Anaheim. Let's hear it for both of these players as they are setting up for a barn burner of a match here.
Both players locking in at very different speeds. We saw Ryota take a lot more time, so maybe a little bit concerned about a couple of things on Sam's team, but Sam 100% knowing what he wanted to go for right off the bat.
Well, he does want that Ninetales and Garchomp immediately, and Ryota does opt to bring out the Tapu Fini and the Alolan Marowak. Just making sure that that Marowak can be out on the field to prevent any kind of setup from that Xurkitree immediately, but will be needing to protect that if Sam brought the Xurkitree this time.
I think it's very interesting that Ryota brings the Marowak in the front, maybe showing it to Sam so that if he switches out in this turn, when Sam brings Xurkitree in, assuming he's bought it in this game, he has to respect the potential switch in, maybe showing his hand a little bit to try and force Sam's play. Of course, the Ninetales would be pretty free while that Marowak is switching out with only the Tapu Fini left to attack to set up one of these Aurora Veils that it needs. That would also open the door a little bit, I think, for something like a Garchomp to Swords Dance. Then once that's set up a Swords Dance, an Icy Wind following up from Ninetales would mean those big hits that, like the Tectonic Rage, maybe even the follow-ups from Rock Slides and Earthquakes, would be moving before Ryota's team.
All right, well, the Aurora Veil will be set up by the Ninetales, protecting that Garchomp and the rest of Sam's Pokemon. No protects at all. Garchomp just goes for the Swords Dance here, standing in front of a Tapu Fini and an Alolan Marowak. The Moonblast coming out from Tapu Fini onto Garchomp, going to be dealing a lot of damage, but thanks to that Aurora Veil, not quite enough to pick up the KO. Flare Blitz from the Marowak connects with the Ninetales and will pick up that KO as well. So Sam, as we've seen on a lot of his games before, really prioritizing getting that that Aurora Veil up and then taking that free switch in from the KO here. Garchomp, though, took a lot of damage on that turn.
It really, really did. And I think a very brave but very successful play from Ryota to leave both these Pokemon in and leave them attacking. Clearly having knowledge about the Ninetales, knowing that it's not carrying that common Focus Sash item, something like the Light Clay to boost the duration of the Aurora Veil, meaning he can take a knockout on it. Sam being forced to bring this Xurkitree in might not be the premium time for it here.
I don't know. That Marowak took a lot of recoil damage. Even if it protects a Tectonic Rage with those Swords Dance boosts, may still be enough.
It would be, but then you have the Tapu Fini in play that might be able to try and help out a little bit. Of course, being able to tidy up and get rid of that Garchomp would be so essential for Ryota in the forthcoming turns. I don't think he has it in the tank this turn, and he also has to respect the Tectonic Rage potentially coming towards that Tapu Fini. The Tectonic Rage is so important for Sam right now after he spent the whole first turn investing in that Garchomp through both the Aurora Veil and the Swords Dance.
All right. Well, Marowak just going to protect this turn. Ryota trying to keep that Pokemon on the field so Xurkitree can't use a Thunderbolt. But unfortunately for him, the Tectonic Rage is moving before the Xurkitree. If this can pick up a KO through the Protect, that will allow Xurkitree to easily fire off some Thunderbolts onto that Tapu Fini.
After a Swords Dance, it's going to be absolutely terrifying to see the amount of damage coming in. It does, of course,
targets the Marowak.
Connect with the Alolan Marowak, the desired target that he really needs to get rid of in this matchup. And the Protect...
so much damage.
Not enough.
That is a quartered damage from the Tectonic Rage, and Marowak still cannot hang on. Picks up the KO. Now, the Xurkitree just able to Tail Glow away with no Marowak to protect the rest of Ryota's team. This Moonblast will finally finish off the Garchomp, but if you're Sam, you are just happy to have that Marowak off the field and your Tail Glowed up Xurkitree ready to start making plays.
Well, Sam's got a really interesting strategy. As you said, getting rolling. The Aurora Veil setting up turn one bought him a little bit of time, so he was then able to use the Swords Dance boost that he got from that and safely bringing in the Xurkitree, knowing that because of the Swords Dance boost and Tectonic Rage, he'd be able to remove Marowak from play by either forcing a switch or just knocking it out through Protect. That's such great knowledge for Sam to have. Now he has lost the Garchomp, but he has, of course, got the Xurkitree, which already is boosted up. So he's in a great position to go offensive on this turn with that. While we do know the Mandibuzz might be able to help out with that problem it has being a little bit slow.
Yeah, but if you are Sam and you have a Tail Glowed up Circuitry. You are so thrilled to see a Celesteela switch in here.
That is the premium target for a big Thunderbolt with no threat of Marowak in the back. Both the Pokemon on Ryota's side of the field don't want to be dealing with Circuitry right now. It's going to be taking easy knockouts on the pair of them. And interesting to see the Mandibuzz actually come into play without the Tapu Lele that he's usually forced to partner with to get the benefit of that Psychic Seed, knowing it's still in a good position to be sticking around.
All right, Dazzling Gleam actually coming out from the Circuitry. It deals a lot of damage to the Tapu Fini and the Celesteela thanks to the boost there. Moonblast from Tapu Fini deals a little bit over 50% damage to the Mandibuzz as well. But we are just going to see a taunt coming out from Mandibuzz, trying to prevent Celesteela from using any of its annoying support moves.
Including the Leech Seed, which it was not able to use in that turn. Really, really essential play to make sure that Ryota doesn't even have his option to try and set up. That's something he's done in numerous games over this tournament, really pulling things back from the brink with those Leech Seed and Protect combinations. Not only does he not have access to Leech Seeds, he doesn't have access to Protect. So that Circuitry is going to be in a fine position to just pick up that knockout in the following turn.
Yeah, Ryota definitely leaving his Celesteela vulnerable here against that Circuitry. Of course, Sam not opting to go for straight knockouts here, choosing the Dazzling Gleam previously. Could probably have dealt a lot of damage with the Thunderbolt, playing it pretty safe, but now he does not have to after that taunt.
No, he really, really doesn't. And it looked like Sam was maybe predicting a switch there, thinking the Celesteela knew its fate was pretty much sealed against the Circuitry, would be forced to leave the field, and then would at least get damage on both the Tapu Fini and whatever came in as Ryota's last Pokemon.
Here come the Thunderbolts, and here come the KOs. Circuitry picking up that one quite easily onto Tapu Fini, not afraid of that Celesteela at all. Getting the Beast Boost to make the Circuitry even scarier, and the Tailwind support from Mandibuzz, meaning that the Circuitry will be the fastest thing on the field. Celesteela is left just using its Heavy Slam against Mandibuzz, but it is not anywhere near enough. Ryota not having anywhere close to the type of offense that Sam's team has right now.
Well, not only does it lack the offense, that limited offense is already reduced by the presence of Aurora Veil that's still in play from that turn one. So Ryota, even if he bought one of the few Pokemon I think would be able to deal with this Circuitry, something like the Crocodile, it's not going to be in a great position. Tapu Koko may be able to try and help out, but it's actually going to end up boosting the Circuitry's already ridiculously powerful Thunderbolt.
Look at me, I'm helping. Electric attacks deal more damage now. Aren't you happy, Celesteela?
You'll be able to knock the Tapu Koko out as well with a Thunderbolt, because I've already got a Tail Glow in play. That is not what you want to do in the tail end of this game, especially after the Tailwind from Mandibuzz, which hasn't been under any threat really to try and set that up. The Moonblast from Tapu Fini came nowhere close to taking that knockout, and this has been the perfect execution of his team's strategy from Sam.
Yep, Sam getting those boosts up immediately, getting the Aurora Veil, getting the Swords Dance, getting the Tail Glow. The hardest thing about piloting a team like Sam's is finding the opportunities to get those boosts, and he was able to create enough pressure just from his positioning on the board to find the time to do so, and it is paying off hugely right now.
No, I think this Circuitry is going to be able to start picking up the knockouts it really, really wants, and that's something he needs to just keep going, especially as he comes into game two.
Ooh, the Thunderbolt trying to get the Tapu Koko, but Ryota did protect this time around. Mandibuzz is just going to go ahead and roost up and heal right back up some of that health that it has lost, but Ryota now able to start dealing a little bit of damage with the Celesteela, still targeting down the Mandibuzz. Ryota definitely valuing getting that Pokemon off of the field because of that Tailwind. Looks like he may just be trying to stall out this Tailwind and then hope to go on the offensive with the Tapu Koko.
But at the same time, he can only focus on one thing when he's protecting with Tapu Koko. Celesteela isn't dealing anywhere near enough damage, and even when Tailwind expires, the Tapu Koko is going to be the only thing that's outpacing either of Sam's Pokemon in both the Mandibuzz and the Circuitry, and it's probably not going to have enough in the tank. The Tapu Koko doesn't have a boosted special attack. Yes, it's got its choice of terrain, but its special attack isn't absolutely sky high like this Circuitry.
Yeah, an absolutely mental Thunderbolt coming out, picking up an easy one-hit KO. Thanks to all of those boosts. Circuitry just showing off now with more Beast Boosts alongside the Mandibuzz. Celesteela out on the field can try to keep dealing damage as it gets taunted once again by the Mandibuzz. But Sam, an amazing first game there, really picking his moments, able to set up so that he had all of the momentum this game. from really turn 0.
There was no way to stop that strategy coming out, and I really think Sam picked the right Pokemon, knowing the Marowak was going to be a threat. He got the Garchomp in early to remove it from play, no matter what happened, getting that Swords Dance up entirely safely thanks to the Aurora Veil, but there was so little Ryota could do to keep his Marowak safe.
Absolutely. The forfeit coming out from Ryota as Sam Pandelis of Australia is now only 1 game away from becoming the world champion here in Anaheim. The Australian crowd is fired up right now. You can hear the chants going throughout the whole stadium here.
That's really what they wanted to see from their one representative, representing them so well in Game 1 of the finals. Coming into Game 2, the adaptation has to come from Ryota here. He needs something to try and help out against that. Maybe something to try and get rid of the Ninetales early on. He's got to play without the Aurora Veil from Sam. That was really something that limited his play. And looking across his team, stopping the Ninetales from setting up Aurora Veil just seems nigh on impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. The fans of Ryota out in the audience as well, cheering their boy on. Is going to need to make some adjustments here as Sam is still 100% confident in his game plan, already locked in. We saw throughout Sam's games yesterday that making sure to protect your Marowak is the most important thing when you're going up against this Xurkitree team. And even though Ryota was able to get the KO onto Ninetales that last time, even with that KO, Marowak dealt so much damage to itself that it put it within range of that Garchomp's Tectonic Rage through the Protect. Previously, we saw Pokemon like Celesteela taking those knockouts on Ninetales instead to protect the Marowak.
And I think that's something that Ryota's definitely going to have to do. Smarter play around the Marowak, maybe a little bit brash of him to show it off, just to threaten the Xurkitree.
Absolutely.
Saving it for later. And then he has access to the mind game of potentially switching it in, which is, of course, going to force the play a little bit differently from Sam. So I think Ryota's really in a position where he has to change up his leads because Sam sure hasn't.
Here we go. Sam Pandelis 1 game away from being the world champion, but he has to get through Ryota Otsuba's Whimsicott and Tapu Fini lead with his Ninetales and Garchomp.
Whimsicott, definitely an interesting adaptation here alongside that Tapu Fini. We do know that is the holder of the Z Crystal on Ryota's team. 1 of 2, actually. And with the Crocodile left at home because it was so scared of switching into the Xurkitree, which then has access to Dazzling Gleam. Looks like Whimsicott is going to be the adaptation he thinks he needs to try and get some value out of a Z move in this game. He needed a little more offensive power, and something like the nature power being affected by Normalium Z is exactly what he could need.
Ryota's fans in the crowd hyped and fired up seeing this lead adaptation here. One crucial note here is that nothing threatens that Ninetales really right now on Ryota's side. So Aurora Veil will be going up for free if Sam wants it and no trade of Pokemon. Looks like Sam does not want to put that Garchomp in any danger, switches it out for the Xurkitree, just switching that Xurkitree in willy-nilly, as we are going to see the Tailwind come out from Whimsicott to give Ryota a little bit more breathing room with which Pokemon are going to be able to deal damage to the sweepers on Sam's side.
He gets the Tailwind up beforehand. The Ninetales free to set up Aurora Veil. That's going to be huge. And this Dazzling Gleam...
Not a bad Dazzling Gleam.
Does a decent amount, but not as much of it as it could have if there was, of course, no danger of the Aurora Veil. That Aurora Veil is already showing how good it is in this matchup. Whimsicott playing it safe, probably looking to try and get some damage down on the Garchomp, but sees the potential for Garchomp to switch out, and then very, very wisely decides to set up a Tailwind. That will help out if Sam, who still has his Ninetales on the field at the end of turn 1, decides to go for those Icy Winds to try and slow down the Pokemon that are usually a little bit faster than his sweepers. That's going to be something he needs to do. Whimsicott wants to be facing off against that Garchomp. Yeah,
Whimsicott switches out Alolan Marowak on the field to threaten that Xurkitree. Just going to protect this turn, so Xurkitree not going to take any damage from Ryota's Pokemon. Another Dazzling Gleam will connect with the Ninetales. That Choice Specs on the Tapu Fini dealing a lot of damage through the Aurora Veil, really just making it incredibly powerful even without any other boost, but the Disable will make sure that Tapu Fini has to switch out or it'll be living the struggle.
Well, that's something that Sam has adapted to with his Ninetales. And knowing about the choice specs on the Tapu Fini means he's forcing plays from Ryota. Ryota is now forced to switch out this Tapu Fini, and he's probably going to be looking to capitalize on that. Something like the Dazzling Gleam from Xurkitree. Maybe trying to find a little bit of an opening there, or just catching it with an Icy Wind on the way in. So whatever's there, if it's still there when the Tailwind ends, it's going to be slower. Of course, the Marowak being forced in from Ryota to try and answer this Xurkitree, but Sam playing so wisely, respecting that switch in potential, and of course, just stopping anything wild happening this turn with a Protect. He gets a good feel for what Ryota's going to do in that turn, and he now knows a little bit about what he's forced to do in this turn.
Yeah, Ryota is absolutely forced to switch out that Tapu Fini. Will be bringing the Whimsicott back in on the field. Of course, did previously set up the Tailwind, but Marowak still very slow. Just going to take this Icy Wind from Ninetales, deal some good damage onto Whimsicott and a little bit onto the Alolan Marowak, but crucially dropping the speed of both of these Pokemon for a little bit of breathing room once the Tailwind ends. There is going to be the Brick Break from Marowak, breaks the shields there.
But
Xurkitree gets onto that Ninetales glow.
Xurkitree getting the tail glow is really, really big here. Means that it's going to be able to start getting that big damage out if it can move. And if it can stall out another turn of Tailwind, that Icy Wind is going to start paying off for him. Of course, the Marowak is still a threat, so he's forced to Dazzling Gleam. But Dazzling Gleam could be picking up the Pokemon alongside the Marowak. That's the big thing for Sam in this turn. Getting value out of this Xurkitree and waiting for Tailwind to end.
Yeah, Sam is going to have to try and stall out a little bit. Ryota showing off his tech there on the Marowak. Shows you a little bit why he was less afraid of the Ninetales this time around.
Yeah, he knows he has a bit of an answer to it, but still not getting the knockout there. So he is still going to be able to get hit by the Icy Winds, which are going to be so, so important with Tailwind about to expire.
All right, well, Whimsicott protecting this turn, not using the last turn of Tailwind here. Ninetales going for the Aurora Veil again, has to reset it after the Brick Break. So Ryota will be able to get off an attack here onto one of the Pokemon on Sam's side. Another Dazzling Gleam coming out from the boosted up Xurkitree, not dealing that much damage at all to the resisted Alolan Marowak, and another Brick Break. This time will pick up the KO, and Sam has no screens.
No more defense boosts in both defense and special defense on Sam's side. And this could really end up being a problem, especially with Whimsicott still on the field.
Can just reset the Tailwind.
Set up the Tailwind. Now he's already lost his Icy Wind Pokemon, so he's not able to start lowering those speeds. Marowak's going to be going last in the turn anyway, and we saw he didn't take all that much damage from a Dazzling Gleam.
Right.
So probably comfortable to maybe buy a little more time. The Tailwind can be matched by Sam here because he brings his Mandibuzz in as his final Pokemon, but there is certainly options from the Whimsicott on Ryota's side that do not mind about the speed control at all.
Absolutely. The Mandibuzz, though, a really interesting Pokemon for Sam to have out against the Marowak, threatening with that foul play. Another option to pick up the Marowak while protecting the Xurkitree, or just boosting its speed with the Tailwind.
Both of the Pokemon on Sam's side, alongside the Xurkitree, the Mandibuzz and the Garchomp that he has in the back, are answers to Marowak. So Ryota definitely needs to keep Marowak around to deal with his Tail Glow boosted Xurkitree. Switching it out is certainly one way to do it.
Yeah, very smart of Ryota to continue to protect his Marowak, switching in the Tapu Fini instead. Again, that will also reset any stat drops. The Nature Power from Whimsicott picks up the KO onto Xurkitree.
This is a really big turn.
That's a big KO. Mandibuzz left, setting the Tailwind for nobody.
Well, it's going to be benefiting that Garchomp, but the Garchomp's coming in against a Tapu Fini and
a Whimsicott.
Whimsicott with Nature Power doesn't mind at all about the changes in speed. It is a status move that then gets boosted by Whimsicott's fantastic Prankster ability. There is one thing, though. He needs to get the Tapu Fini out and then back in to turn it into the Fairy-type Moonblast. But he has the option to do that. There's no value for the Marowak here for him anymore. It's not going to be dealing with the Xurkitree because he just knocked it out with Moonblast anyway. So you could see a very easy switch into the Marowak, let that get knocked out by the Mandibuzz or the Garchomp, and then go back on the offensive. If Whimsicott has the time to protect, it could protect. I hope Marowak gets knocked out immediately on the way in.
Yeah, but it is always risky when you're going up against a team like Sam's. Those free switch-ins are also just free opportunities to Swords Dance on that Garchomp and start building even more damage. No switch, just the Tectonic Rage coming out from the Garchomp. Sam really trying to get some of that momentum back here with a big Z move.
That's something he's going to need to do, is put the momentum back in his favor. But clearly Ryota, believing in his Tapu Fini and its ability to start picking up knockouts, now Aurora Veil isn't in play.
It is on the Tapu Fini that will deal a lot of damage. No Swords Dance needed. Garchomp picks up the KO onto Tapu Fini. No more Misty Terrain able to come on the field and boost that nature power into Moonblast anymore either. That is a huge knockout for Sam.
Yeah, and Ryota needed to preserve that Tapu Fini. It was so important to this matchup. The Marowak could have been an easy switch in there. Let it get knocked out by the Tectonic Rage. Let it fall to this Garchomp, which beats it anyway, and then you have Tapu Fini for later without Tectonic Rage. I think Ryota not expecting the Tectonic Rage to be used into that Tapu Fini, looking to get a Choice Specs boosted Moonblast there, and Sam swinging the momentum so quickly in his favor. Clearly feeling pretty positive, though, about what he has in that last remaining slot.
Yeah, we still have not seen Ryota's final Pokemon here. Previously, it was the Celesteela, but it is very possible that Ryota has changed up his game plan a little bit more. Gonna need something to deal with both the Mandibuzz and the Garchomp. It needs to worry about potentially getting stalled out with that Roost. Going to set up the Tailwind just to make sure that the final Pokemon are going to be as fast as possible while Sam gets a Swords Dance on this turn here. And a Taunt coming out from Mandibuzz. One of the worst things that can happen to your Whimsicott is getting taunted. Shadow Bone from the Marowak dealing a little bit of damage. Does get the drop though.
Yeah, that's something that's going to help out a little bit there, but it may not be enough. And this Whimsicott is entirely dead weight now after the taunt. Most of the Whimsicott we see in the format we have right now don't carry a normal attacking move. They only bring nature power, which just isn't going to be what Ryota needs to try and get back into this game. He is, of course, relying pretty much on that last Pokemon. This Garchomp, with the boost, should be able to start picking up easy knockouts with Earthquake here. And Sam just ensuring a nice win condition for himself.
All right, Ryota will go ahead and protect the Marowak on his side. Trying to make sure that the Marowak will get a chance to attack in this Tailwind. Rock Slide not enough to pick up the KO onto Whimsicott, so no KO coming from Whimsicott just immediately, but will take the foul play. Ryota now able to get a free switch in here. Knew that that Whimsicott wasn't doing anything else for the rest of the game, did not want to threaten the Pokemon in the back. So Ryota now able to switch in his final Pokemon.
Yep, and Ryota's going to have to reveal the full extent of his hand here. It is the Tapu Koko.
Tapu Koko loves that Mandibuzz.
It loves Mandibuzz, and actually...
And a weakened Garchomp.
With the damage from Shadow Bone, the Garchomp as well. Of course, there is the Tailwind in play, and both these players set up their Tailwind at different times. Sam has the option to buy a little bit of time, make sure he's the only one benefiting from it. That's so important in this game. And Sam is just still in that position where, unless he tries to go on the offensive a little bit too early, is in a very good position to try and get this Garchomp to beat this Tapu Koko.
Absolutely. Garchomp has to protect, stall out the Tailwind on Ryota's side. Just going to block damage coming in from both of Ryota's Pokemon here. The Dazzling Gleam from Tapu Koko, the right choice there, would be able to deal a lot of damage to both Pokemon here. About 50% onto Mandibuzz. And it looks like the Flare Blitz connecting with the Mandibuzz. Ryota not falling for the Protector, picks up the KO. No more Tailwind pressure on Sam's side. And Ryota, looks like Ryota's forcing a Game 3 here.
He is, and he played fantastically on that turn where he knew that Tailwind advantage was going to be changing at the end of it. Tapu Koko just needs to keep itself safe on this last turn of Tailwind from Sam, and then he's going to be able to go after it with a single target Dazzling Gleam. Of course, the damage being boosted. Tapu Koko, though, already going first.
Yep, there is the Dazzling Gleam picking up the KO onto Garchomp, and we got a series. Ryota Otsuba and Sam Pandelis now both one game away from becoming the 2017 Pokemon video game world champion.
It's come down to one. Both of those games, players getting good information, and Ryota making fantastic adjustments, bringing the Whimsicott in there, bringing the Tapu Koko at a much better time when Xurkitree was removed from the field, and revealing the Brick Break from Marowak to remove that Aurora Veil from play was so essential from Ryota. He's probably going to want to execute a very similar strategy, and even within his victory, there was a couple of things that could have been changed around. The Tapu Fini, for example, not giving the option for a Moonblast from Nature Power from Whimsicott. something like that would be able to swing games a little bit quicker, I think, for Ryota. So he's learned a lot from game one, and knowing how Sam's trying to execute that strategy, he was able to respond to it so well.
Uh-oh, Sam is thinking. This is the first time Sam hasn't selected his Pokemon immediately. Might be a little shaken up after that second game. Gets it within the first 30 seconds, though, so not too shook up. Ryota still taking his time to pick his Pokemon. Really great adaptations there, not worrying as much about the Ninetales. Recognizes that the Aurora Veil will go up, but he has answers for it. And not taking damage on the Marowak was a huge deal to keep it healthy and around for a longer portion of that game.
Well, he actually managed to get 2 Brick Breaks out of the Marowak, and that was really good for him, because that Brick Break, getting rid of Aurora Veil, is one of the key parts of Sam's strategy. Being able to keep his Pokemon on the field longer, being able to get a little more setup time, being able to get a little bit more time to lower his opponent's speed was really good. And bringing the Whimsicott as well, that is not so bad when it comes to, of course, dealing with those speed drops because of the Prankster ability, was the perfect adaptation from Ryota in Game 2.
Here we go. Game 3, the decider. Our final match here in Anaheim. I can't believe it's already almost over. In a cool 15 or 20 or 30 or so minutes, we will have a new world champion. Will it be Sam Pandelis of Australia and his team of Garchomp, Ninetales, Arcanine, Mandibuzz, Tapu Lele, and Xurkitree, or will it be Ryota Otsuba, who has decided to bring his Alolan Marowak and his Whimsicott in the front position of his squad once again?
Well, the Alolan Marowak, again, being there to remind Xurkitree it has to be careful with its Thunderbolt. It is also there, in this instance, though, to potentially Brick Break the Aurora Veil. And I think the decision lays with Sam on this one, the key decision in this turn, at least, on what is happening in that slot where Marowak is. Is Marowak going to stay there and protect? Is it going to potentially switch out? And if so, is he going to be able to use the Garchomp to deal with that slot? We do see something like the Ninetales likely going to be setting up. It's going to be very limited in that. But a smart switch on that Marowak slot could open a number of doors when it comes to Ryota's play.
Yeah, it's going to come down to these early turns. Who can get the momentum here? We saw in Game 1 when Sam was able to set up. It was just about over for Ryota, but it looks like Ryota is the one exerting the most pressure here as Garchomp has to switch out for the Mandibuzz. Marowak switches out.
Yeah, this is going to be big depending on what comes in. Tapu Fini bringing Misty Terrain. This could be so essential in this turn, depending on what Whimsicott has gone for here.
The Z move!
Nature Power turning into Moonblast because of the incoming Misty Terrain.
And then becoming
Twinkle Tackle. It's going to be so big. And if it was targeting that slot where the Garchomp was,
does not affect the Mandibuzz.
Oh, if he went for the Garchomp slot, the Mandibuzz blocks it because of the dark typing. That was what I was wanting to say, that it is the perfect switch in. And it's similar to using an electric type move into Lightning Rock. That doesn't affect it.
Dark-type Pokemon not affected by attacks that have been boosted by the Prankster ability means that Nature Power Z-move Twinkle Tackle is busted.
Completely wasted.
Free Aurora Veil.
Completely wasted in this game. And such smart play from Sam to make that switch. He looked like he was going to be taking an easy knockout on the Garchomp, which has previously been staying around and setting up Sword Stance. But Sam saw that coming clearly, so prepared for that team, and knowing that the dark typing on Mandibuzz was the key element here to deal with those fairy type moves that you usually can't handle.
Well, Ryota's Whimsicott no longer has its ace in the hole, but will be able to set up a Tailwind here. Going to be cut a little bit in its efficacy by the Icy Wind from Ninetales. So we'll drop the speed of both the Tapu Fini and the Whimsicott for this turn. The Tapu Fini, though, will be able to continue to fire off some powerful Dazzling Gleams with that Choice Specs, dealing a little bit of damage to the Mandibuzz and to the Ninetales, but with that Aurora Veil, not the full amount. And another taunt on Whimsicott means that Pokemon has to retreat.
It's really not been Whimsicott's day. It has set up Tailwind, which is certainly going to help out a little bit. But that's not what he needs. He needed it to do that big damage with the Z move. And this could be really big and a very, very quick swing in Sam's favor. Now, Whimsicott is forced to switch out after the taunt. He's going to be able to spend a little bit of time dealing with the Tapu Fini. And we know that the potential disable from the Ninetales would be a fantastic way to deal with it in this turn.
Tapu Koko switching in really early here for Ryota. That's been a Pokemon that he has kept in the back in all of his previous matches, but that's going to be the Pokemon he needs to make something happen here. Ryota also opting not to allow that Ninetales to get a free disable off onto the Marowak, but he didn't even go for it. Catching the switch in, gets the Icy Wind on both of Ryota's Pokemon. Great prediction there from Sam, recognizing that he probably wasn't going to get another free disable off here.
Not after
just going for the Icy Wind and set up a foul play onto the Tapu Koko.
Well, maybe you see Sam predicting the Marowak to be the switch-in for that Whimsicott that wasn't able to move, and throwing the foul play at the slot that it isn't in. Every little bit of damage is going to help out against this Tapu Koko, though, and Tapu Koko probably going to be struggling to make that call after what we saw with the Z move. You know that Sam can make these big switches to make sure these attacks are not effective at all, doing no damage. And the potential switch to a Garchomp means this Tapu Koko has to be careful about using its electric-type attacks. It could be forced into using its fairy-type attacks, such as Dazzling Gleam, that isn't going to be as powerful because it doesn't benefit from the terrain.
There's always Discharge.
There is always Discharge, and that is something that could be interesting. But you'd only still be doing damage to this Ninetales, not one of the big sweepers that Sam is looking to get into a great position in this game.
All right, Ryota's Pokemon out on the field, slowed a little bit by the Icy Wind, just going for the Dazzling Gleam onto both the Mandibuzz and the Ninetales, as Tapu Fini is as well dealing a little bit of damage, but nowhere near as much as you would like to see. And the Disable actually connecting this time with Tapu Koko, so no more Dazzling Gleams able to come out here, while Mandibuzz able to get this foul play off onto Marowak, still hangs on though. So more damage coming out from the Mandibuzz. The Brick Break, from the Marowak, the Brick Break onto the Ninetales will get rid of the Aurora Veil and put it in within Dazzling Gleam range or Discharge range.
Yep, striking range for Tapu Koko now. And with one more turn of Tailwind remaining, this is the turn I think Ryota needs to be capitalizing on. The Discharge here would be really good at picking up the knockouts, of course, Marowak's Lightning Rod ability, keeping it so safe. And it's not even able to look at Dazzling Gleam. Discharge is the best adaptation here. So even if the Garchomp comes in, then he is going to be able to start capitalizing on it. If the Garchomp comes in and the other Pokemon is able to take it very, very well, or potentially switch back out, then Dazzling Gleam is still disabled. So with that Garchomp coming in, Ryota's probably going to have to look at a way to deal with it with something like this Marowak. Finding the right slot that it comes in, making that call, and hitting it with something like the Shadow Bone.
No Protect on either of Sam's two Pokemon, Mandibuzz or Ninetales, means he has to switch at least one out. Ninetales does switch out for the Garchomp, but Ryota actually switching out his own Marowak, bringing back in the Whimsicott. Making sure, looks like he wanted to go for the Thunderbolt, or did still go for the Discharge, just going to take the damage onto Whimsicott instead and pick up the KO onto the Mandibuzz.
Yep, Whimsicott completely accepting that damage there.
Yeah.
But getting rid of the Mandibuzz rather important. It means that this Whimsicott has the option to try and set up the Tailwind, but without it being matched by the Mandibuzz on Sam's side of the field. Of course, that Mandibuzz isn't going to be around to try and get the next foul play onto this Marowak, but he's still going to have to deal with this Garchomp, and with the Dazzling Gleam unable to be used because of Disable, it looks like it might be on Whimsicott to try and do that again.
Well, if Whimsicott can get the Tailwind up, Ryota's other Pokemon in the back may be able to break through Sam's offensive core here with the Xurkitree and Garchomp out on the field, and we know Ninetales in the back in red health. It's going to be really on the Landshark and the Ultra Beast to bring it home for Australia.
Yeah, he's going to need a little bit of time, and respecting potential switches. A Tailwind to start this turn, very interesting, of course.
No switches.
From Ryota.
No switches, just Tectonic Rages coming out from Garchomp. Sam recognizing that he needs to start putting out some offensive threat immediately if he's going to have a chance of protecting that circuitry and protecting the Garchomp via offense.
Yep, and with the Tapu Fini in the back, that's something that's going to really enjoy the tailwind that was just set up by this Whimsicott.
Yep.
It looks like
and the lack of Aurora Veil.
Maybe allowing both of his Pokemon to get knocked out here and just bring in his 2 remaining Pokemon in the chance that they can sweep under tailwind.
Well,
Circuitry isn't going to knock out the Whimsicott for him, though, is of course just going to leave it in play.
Just wants the Tail Glow here. Ryota now does have the option to bring in the Tapu Fini and then boost up that Whimsicott's Nature Power into a Moonblast.
And that Moonblast will be really good against...
We saw how much damage it dealt last game.
Yes, it does so much. And that means that he now has 2 Pokemon providing a good offensive threat. He needed to bring Tapu Fini in. And you have to think, if the Garchomp's on the field, Sam's likely going to have to protect that. That's something that's rather important, I think, with the Marowak in the back. The Marowak's so low that he's going to be able to pick up a knockout with ease. And if Ryota can find the opportunity to deal with this Tail Glow circuitry, then Marowak again becomes not so important.
Right.
A lot is riding, though, on this Tapu Fini. I think that's the focal point of Ryota's team right now.
Yeah, this Choice Specs Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini, a Pokemon you don't expect to be dishing out the damage. Protect coming up from the Garchomp. Sam protecting his Pokemon here. And we are going to see Ryota going on the offensive with the Moonblast into the circuitry.
That's the nature power.
A lot of damage.
He's called it right.
Another Moonblast!
He called it. The Protect was telegraphed by Sam, and he's able to get it. He gets the knockout on a turn where Garchomp protected, keeping itself over safe. The next turn, this Garchomp is going to be able to get knocked out by Tapu Fini because it just protected. Sam is now looking at a double protect, and this weakened Ninetales
can't do anything.
It's going to get picked up by the Whimsicott. Ryota just has to pick the right targets with the right Pokemon. Whimsicott using Prankster, not going to be worried about the Mandibuzz and its Dark typing this time. That will go over towards the Ninetales and tidy it up, with Tapu Fini seeing the Protect last turn from Garchomp, able to go for it with no Aurora Veil. He has to use Whimsicott to beat the Ninetales because it moves with the benefit of Prankster.
There's the Nature Power again.
Turning into Moonblast.
Moonblast on the field. Ryota Otsuba this turn proving that 2016 was a fluke. Japan is back.
Tapu Fini to round it out.
Tapu Fini, Choice Specs Tapu Fini with the Moonblast onto Garchomp. A one-hit KO. Ryota Otsuba is your 2017 Masters World Champion. Fantastic
adaptation over the course of the set from Ryota there. Game 1, a little bit bruising for him, but fantastic plays in both Game 2 and 3. Learned a little bit in Game 2, made a mistake in the beginning of Game 3, but that wasn't enough to stop him. He had so much gas left in the tank that he was able to make those perfect predictions, including the double target on Xurkitree at the end there.
And you just have to feel for these players, all of that emotion that has been pent up for the entire weekend, bursting out of Ryota there at the end. An incredibly well-played final set, and Ryota Otsuba, an amazing world champion here. The Japanese national champion gets the twofer, goes from national champion, breaks the nationals curse, becomes our world champion here in 2017.
And very well deserved. We did see him actually up the tempo of his games in this final, but a fantastic response from what he saw from Sam in Game 1. Really smart play throughout, but Sam, a very worthy finalist. We saw in the first game how well he can execute his strategies when left alone to do it.
Absolutely. Sam Pandelis